welcome to Everyone's a Critic movie review podcast. I'm your co-host, Bob Zerl.
Hey, I met you. You are not cool.
With me, as always, is professional film critic Sean Patrick.
I am the smart. I am the smart. S-M-R-T. I mean S-M-A-R-T.
And Josh Adams.
Stick around.
Visit us at ihatecritics.net. We're also on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Our handle there is Critics Pod. There you can check out our top fives, watch trailers, read Sean's reviews, see the rankings that Sean has. Our website has all that as well, ihatecritics.net. And then you can be a Patreon supporter there as well, ihatecritics.net/Patreon. The best way to help support the podcast. And we have actually done our first bonus episode that's up there now. It is also on Bandcamp. I shared it on Facebook once. It's broken up into 4 parts because unless I pay $10 a month to be on Bandcamp, I can't put a file that big out. So thank God we're not a prog rock band. But I'll post a link to that on the website eventually when I get around to it, hopefully sooner than later. There you can buy it for $1, or actually you can pay whatever you want for it, but a minimum of $1. Or you can just go to Patreon and get it. Jason did get back to us on our Greasy Strangler, and he kind of was with us. He knew there was a following behind it, and he just didn't understand it. And I think he's learned to. He enjoys telling people to see it. I think that's the enjoyment he has out of it.
Oh, for sure.
And there is some. I don't know. So you'll have to listen to the podcast, but there's your little taste for the day. iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play. Rate and review the show. We'll read the review on the air and help us move up the charts. All right, let's do trailers first, and then we'll get to our news. The Netflix movie The Week Of.
Yeah, this was on theater, so I don't have to watch it. So,
Were you going to anyways?
Probably
Even if it
not.
was in
Yeah.
theaters? Okay.
oh yeah, I'm in theaters. I mean, yeah, they pay me to
Okay.
do that.
Okay. Just making sure, because occasionally you'll skip the random animated film. I didn't know if Adam Sandler had dropped down to crappy animation level.
Now, he only skips when there's like 15 movies that week. He writes it aside. And I still think he sees it, just not for the podcast. Yeah, I mean, it was an Adam Sandler Netflix movie. I like Chris Rock. I like Adam Sandler enough. So I'll probably watch it, or at least part of it, turn it on, going to sleep some night. But I won't, like, seriously sit down and watch it.
Yeah, neither will I. And the trailer's funny enough, I suppose. The conversation in the car between Chris Rock and Adam Sandler, that's a bit of comedy gold right there, I think. There's the opportunity with just those two is the leads, that would be a far better film than Sandler and the rest of his buddies all in the same movie. Now, he's still got buddies in the movie, of course, I'm sure, but with the two of them being leads, I feel like there's a bit more promise involved in that.
Is there a premise?
Yes, Adam Sandler is the father of the bride, and Chris Rock is the father of the groom. So it's a family getting together and knowing each other. The trailer promises more than the collective groan, though. I mean, to be fair to the trailer, it's not a bad trailer. I guess we just have familiarity with him.
And if, like, the trailer is them in the car talking.
Uh-huh.
If that's the whole movie, I would be kind of okay with that. A nice simplified Sandler and Rock sitting next to each other talking. That would be more entertaining than a moose peeing on you in bed. Or whatever.
Which is really what
was.
Sandler would prefer.
I think he likes it all equally. But, I don't know. I'll probably watch it at some point. Then there was Kings.
Kings with Halle Berry and Daniel Craig, set around the Rodney King beating and then the trial and subsequent riots. And wow, that's a hell of a trailer. I don't know who directed this.
His name, he had 3 names. I just can't remember it at the moment. Dante something.
Nobody I've ever heard of.
No.
So
Denise Gamze Erguven.
that makes me a little nervous because I don't know him as a director, but it's
Her.
an impressive trailer. Sorry.
No.
It's an impressive trailer. Really interesting subject that could be. It's a very meaty role for Halle Berry. I'm interested. Like I said, a lot of this type of material relies on having a great director involved, and I just don't know who this is.
Right. Well,
Yeah, she's directed one feature-length film. It was called Mustang back in 2015. I hadn't heard of it. I don't know if you'd seen it, but
It sounds familiar, but
I guess the the whole thing about this trailer is, have we had a movie that really explores the post Rodney King verdict riots? And I don't remember that we had
was a
maybe a
Kurt Russell
documentary.
movie. Dark Blue or something.
Dark
like that.
Blue, yeah.
Oh, I see, the Ron Shelton film.
Yeah.
I had not seen that.
That wasn't great.
It was okay. It wasn't bad.
The action scenes surrounding the riot portion was pretty great, but everything leading up to that was pretty standard corrupt cop stuff.
So yeah, I don't know. And Halle Berry lately has been in movies that were better than they should have been. I feel like, other than movie
Kidnap.
43. But she's had like 2 or 3 kidnaps in a row. But and she's capable of doing the meaty stuff, Swordfish and Monsters Ball.
I see what he did there.
They came out the same year, did they not?
Close, yeah.
Yeah, definitely close. But this film that we're talking about here, Kings, it already has been reviewed by a lot of major outlets. It's got a Metascore of 38. And
that's
we're talking
bad news.
Variety, The Guardian, et cetera, that have very, very low scores. So I think your thought about a director that doesn't have a lot of work behind them might apply here.
And then there was Life of the Party, the new Melissa McCarthy movie. She's funny.
As long as Melissa McCarthy is going to curse, I'm okay. I'm fine with it. I love it. She's just the funniest person when it comes to. She delivers a curse word better than anybody. And especially in a role like this where she's playing a mom, basically remaking Back to School but with a mom instead of a rich guy. I'm in. I like it.
It's rated PG-13 and directed by her husband, Ben Falcone.
Oh, is that? Those are okay.
Yeah, that can still
They're
work.
a step down, but they're not bad. And then I guess Oscar picks. I haven't even thought about it for 2 seconds. So I'm literally not literally, figuratively shooting from the hip right now. Wow, watch out, Josh.
New house, new abilities.
Let's start with original screenplay.
I would love to say The Big Sick would win that, but it's not going to. It's going to go to Shape of Water.
Really?
The Shape of Water to me is more of like a technical. You're behind the buzz on this film, so you know better than I do. But
I'm behind it just sort of sweeping through, being the dominant one on the night. Even as I think Three Billboards has a shot, I think it's going to be Shape of Water's night.
I would go with if Get Out is going to take anything home, then original screenplay and directing might be the things that I go for, and so I'm going to pick Get Out for this.
See, to me, it's either Lady Bird or if Lady Bird's not going to win anything else, it's going to win this. But if it's going to win something, it's going to be The Big Sick because neither one of them are going to win anything, I don't think. So it'll kind of be based on that. Maybe Get Out would be my third choice, but I when Lady Bird had all the buzz, I would have said The Big Sick. But right now I'll go Lady Bird because I don't think Shape of Water will get it just because it's going to get everything else. And same with Three Billboards. So that's the logic I'm using at least. Best adapted screenplay, we got Call Me By Your Name, The Disaster Artist, Logan, Molly's Game, and Mudbound.
I think just the process of elimination, Call Me By Your Name being the only Best Picture nominee in this category, it's got to win.
I can't disagree with that. I would like The Disaster Artist to win, but I do think that Call Me By Your Name will win. It's kind of cool that Logan got nominated, but adapted from what? I mean,
Comic books.
Right?
That's what it's adapted from.
Other movies.
Of course. I guess I just find it interesting because it's based off of a specific storyline, and so what does adapted mean? Like just not an original work
Yes.
is what they're getting at. Okay. That's simple enough. I should have figured that a long time ago being on a movie podcast.
Yeah, I'm with Josh. I want Disaster Artist, but it'll be Call Me By Your Name. Directing, let's go there.
I would go with Greta Gerwig myself to win, but the real pick is Guillermo del Toro because, like I said, it, Shape of Water is going to do a pretty solid sweep.
I thought the best job of directing wasn't even nominated, and that was, I think, Sean Barker from the Florida Project because of the way that he directed those kids for that entire movie. And my pick for it is going to be Jordan Peele. I think, again, the writing and directing for that movie is what's going to get it.
I think the best job was Greta Gerwig, far and away, actually. But I think Guillermo del Toro wins, not just for this, but for Pan or whatever the other one was, Pan's Labyrinth.
Mm-hmm.
Way back when.
The Lord of the Rings theory.
Yep. It happens a lot. Jeff Bridges won an award for that theory.
Crazy Heart, yep.
Actress in a supporting role.
Well, I would love to see Laurie Metcalf win, but Allison Janney has already got all the buzz, and it's going there.
I would agree with that. I thought that was the strongest of the ones of these that I saw as well.
I'm with Sean, although I actually like all of them in this category. I think they all could easily win, but Allison Janney kind of stood out. Best supporting actor.
All the time I was saying that this was Willem Dafoe's category. He's definitely going to win. Not anymore. It's Sam Rockwell. Sam Rockwell's going to win Best Supporting Actor. Just everything keeps breaking his way in terms just of the leading up to this in the awards, and yeah, he's going to win it.
He definitely had the most convincing supporting performance other than Willem Dafoe. I just thought that the three Billboards actors would kind of cancel each other out when you're talking about viewers and voters for the Academy. So I'll go with Sam Rockwell as well, but it's either him or Dafoe for sure.
His performance was the most important, even more so than Dafoe's, because without him, that movie falls apart.
Yeah.
And I think we said that on the show. So I got to go with him, and it sounds like he's getting a lot of buzz anyway with it. Actress in a leading role.
Again, I would choose Saoirse Ronan. I mean, that would be my choice if I could put this category together. I thought she was incredible in Lady Bird, but as much as I've been predicting A Shape of Water, big sweep, it's going to take most of the top awards, but I do believe that Frances McDormand's already got this one in the bag.
I would agree with that, and that would have been my choice.
I would go Saoirse Ronan any day of the week. And I'm going to take her, too. I think at some point you have to give somebody else an award, and that could be the Lady Bird Award that somebody gets.
I would be with you if she'd won anything else leading up to this.
I don't care. I don't watch anything else. Like I said, I've done no research. So. Actor in a leading role.
This is another one that's very easy to pick, although, again, I would say Daniel Day-Lewis blows everybody away from Phantom Thread, and Daniel Kaluuya would be right behind him. But Gary Oldman's already got it in the bag. It's already been decided. His name is already on it. It's going to be Gary Oldman.
Yeah, I guess I got to watch that. I would go with Timothée Chalamet, and I'll stick with that as the actual choice because that film has been around, and I don't think it's the Best Picture winner. If the theory of give the movie something, that would be the award they'd give that to.
Yeah, I'm going with that theory for the adapted screenplay, so I think Gary Oldman, it sounds like he won everything else. So, and then Best Picture.
Shape of Water.
Yeah, I'd have to agree.
I'm going Lady Bird. I think, what happened last year? It happens every now and then where the movie comes out of nowhere. And I know Three Billboards is the obvious second choice, but Lady Bird's the best movie on that list, and I'm going with that. I don't give a shit.
I agree with you that it is the best movie on this list. There's no doubt about it. But if there's going to be if I had a second choice, if you told me I couldn't pick The Shape of Water, I'd have to pick Get Out, because Get Out is actually building some buzz among
Actually
voters.
back in theaters this weekend. Yeah, I mean, I would love to see Get Out just for this simple fact that, I guess The Shape of Water is technically a genre movie, but it's really a romance hidden in the genre movie. I'm not picking Get Out for any reason other than I don't know. I'm not prepared, really, is the big reason. I was hoping we'd forget about the Oscars so we didn't have to watch it.
Honestly, I woke up this morning and said, did we forget about the Oscars last night? So that's how in tune we are.
Game night.
Game night is Jason Bateman and Rachel McAdams as a couple who are very competitive. They met being competitive with each other, then they became competitive together, and they hold game night at their house with their friends. And the plot thickens when Bateman's brother arrives. What's his name?
Kyle Chandler.
Thank you, Kyle Chandler. Arrives, and he wants to take game night up a notch. So he's planned this murder mystery party where somebody's going to get kidnapped. Only the thing is that somebody actually does get kidnapped. He does. And not everybody knows right away that this is a real kidnapping. And that's a pretty high concept, and it could go very, very wrong and become very stupid. But this movie is so much smarter than I expected it to, especially considering these are the directors behind Vacation, which is a movie I still viscerally hate. So for them to turn it around this well is very impressive. This movie's really funny, like genuinely funny. I laughed a lot at this movie. Jason Bateman playing Jason Bateman is pretty much it's money for me. That's just my sweet spot when it comes to that kind of dry sarcasm, that that very slow burn of humiliation that he does. It's fun for me. That's fun to watch. I really enjoy it. Rachel McAdams hasn't been this good since Mean Girls. Honestly, it's like she's just so relaxed here and so in the moment. And I think Bateman brings something out of her that we haven't seen from her in a very long time. Like I said, since Mean Girls, really.
I would watch Rachel McAdams playing a character like this every year. Like I would Amy Schumer or Melissa McCarthy, maybe even more so, if I'm being completely honest, because she's an actual actress. She was that funny and that good.
Yeah. Just her delivery of the line, "Oh, he died." It's such a great moment. Oh, you can see that in the trailer. It's not a spoiler or anything.
No.
So
And you don't know who he is.
Yeah. This movie is really funny. Jesse Plemons. Oh my God, Jesse
Steals
Plemons
the movie.
steals the entire movie as Gary the creepy neighbor. Wow, that scene in the trailer barely does justice to just how great he is in this movie.
Oh yeah. I'm a Friday Night Lights fan of the TV show. So you got Kyle Chandler not playing the coach at all. He's playing basically a cooler Jason Bateman that Jason Bateman can't live up to. And he's fan. It really, why this movie works is every single actor knocks it out of the park. The supporting cast, Dexter, everybody knocks. Spoiler alert. Everybody knocks it out of the park. There's not a bad, and I think that's why the directors succeeded here. It's because you had a cast that did not disappoint.
Yeah, and Kylie Bunbury and Lamorne Morris as well. Billy Magnuson. Such a great group. That running joke about who Kylie Bunbury actually slept with was fantastic.
Oh, the payoff was even better. The run was great, but when they finally paid it off, you're like, oh my God, this is amazing.
The Fight Club references, I mean, just the way they keep paying off these great jokes. They lay them in and they pay them off brilliantly.
And the chemistry between every couple in this movie is spot on. I mean, and I don't want to overshoot this movie because you're going to forget about it eventually. This
is not an all-time great comedy. This is not 40-Year-Old Virgin or stuff like that is all constantly memorable. This is
role models.
Yeah, exactly. Perfect. That's a perfect reference for this.
It's just a ton of fun, and
I could sit here and pull threads on this plot, like how did this person know to be at this place at this time and all that kind of stuff. There's a lot of convenient moments.
Convenience happens in real life, but I think I'd have to watch it again to truly, because they may answer it or not, because there is a lot of weird shit that happens. Because eventually it stops becoming a game, and you kind of figure that out early on. It's not really a spoiler alert, but then it does kind of come back, and then but I don't know. It's just,
it's really clever is the point. And I was really surprised that this was the Vacation guys that did this.
I actually picked this over Annihilation. I did see Annihilation, so don't get worried. But a Thursday night, I was like, I want to see a movie, and I want to keep my brain turned off, so I'm going to see game night, and I'm glad I did it this way, because there's no way I would have stuck with Annihilation on a Thursday night that late at night. Oh, I do think Josh was at the theater at the exact same time watching Annihilation. If I'm reading.
Oh,
Facebook
absolutely. I was 9:50 show on Thursday.
9:45 for me.
One of the directors of this is John Francis Daly, who's on Bones, that show on Fox for a long time, and he's a director. he always looked 12.
Well, he's a director,
Bones.
and he's got a partner director as well that he works with regularly. They both did
Jonathan Goldstein.
Vacation. God, I hate that.
I didn't hate it as much as you did, but I didn't. I'm not
so
gonna.
terrible. But to the point where I'm so shocked by how good this is based off of just how bad that is. It makes me like this movie that much more.
I remember when we did that movie on the podcast. I didn't really speak up. I just kind of let you go. And then as we were leaving, I whispered to Josh, "It wasn't that bad." It wasn't great.
Yes, it was.
It wasn't great, but he just doesn't like puke.
Worst movie of that year.
Yeah, it's fine. I laughed.
I would rather watch The Greasy Strangler.
That might be true, but that still doesn't change my opinion. But yeah,
Okay, fine. All of the Crazy String.
You don't know. But yeah, go see game night if you get a chance. Maybe wait till Netflix if you want or whatever. But you'll have a lot of fun with it.
Put your top 5. Who's your top 5?
Our top 5 this week is movies with game themes, or in some cases, game titles, or the word game. Like, it depends on how we all defined it differently. I'll tell you that much. Jason from New Mexico, he had Would You Rather, Truth or Dare, The Running Man, The Deer Hunter, and Alive. Beth had Ender's Game, The Game, Silver Linings Playbook, War Games, and Clue. Uncle Jeff had Slumdog Millionaire, The Game, The Running Man, The Rookie, War Games. Cousin Jeff had The Game, Resident Evil, Tomb Raider, the first Angelina Jolie one, Clue, Silent Hill, with honorable mention to the inevitable Connect 4 movie.
Silent Hill's not that bad.
Sean Bean, right? Rhoda Mitchell.
Rhoda Mitchell, yeah.
Now, is it a game or is it based on a game?
Based on a game.
I had Would You Rather, which the more I get away from that, I kind of like that movie. It's a neat little. It was on Netflix. I don't know. I've mentioned it on the show, but I haven't really talked about it. It's kind of one of those fucked up movies where a rich guy sits a bunch of poor people down and goes, "Do this or die." And it's one of those hard to watch movies. With one of the stars of Pitch Perfect. But then game night was fresh in my mind. Rounders, The Seventh Seal, which just remember that chess scene, and then Wreck-It Ralph. Thanks, Josh, for putting that in my head.
No, you're welcome. I can't believe I had forgotten about it at first, and I went back and edited it. My number 5 is Wreck-It Ralph. 4, The Last Starfighter. Anybody?
Nope.
No, just me. Okay.
Yeah, all you.
3 is Clue. One of the great joys of this podcast for me has been being introduced to Clue when it turned 30 because I really liked it. 2, Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire. It literally surrounds the Triwizard Tournament and, a game. Number 1, Scott Pilgrim versus the World, which, okay.
He couldn't find one game in a Lord of the Rings movie.
Cross country.
Har, har, har. Did you seriously expect me to put Lord of the Rings in there?
No.
Because there were rings involved? Or?
You did a ring toss. Yeah.
They usually find their way into the top 5.
The funny thing is The Hobbit, An Unexpected Journey, the riddle game that Gollum plays with Bilbo, that could have qualified, but no.
But your number 1 is a good movie, Scott Pilgrim versus the World, which I thought about. I just didn't for no real reason.
It's like inspired. A lot of it is inspired by the Nintendo atmosphere, so of
Right.
course there's no real game involved, I guess. But
that and Deer Hunter I considered big time, but you guys already put them on there, so I didn't need to.
And I just went with all movies with game in the title.
Yeah, Patriot Games, Hunger Games, all of them. Spy Game, Game Night, and House of Games. Do you like all those movies?
Yeah.
More or less. Even Patriot Games.
I like Patriot Games. I like most of the Hunger Games, especially the last one. Really liked Game Night, as we talked about earlier, and House of Games is really great. We talked about it just last year.
Spy Game surprised me, though. I saw that as like the conventional Robert Redford, Brad Pitt thing.
Based off of that spy trope, though, it's among the best of that kind of movie.
Oh, okay. Interesting. I've never seen it, so...
Good.
Yeah.
And then I'm going to turn me and Josh's mic off. Every day, go.
Every Day is a YA fantasy romance. And what is there to say about this? The premise, I guess, is kind of clever. The idea is clever that there's this entity, this soul, that calls itself A, and A wakes up in a different body every day, always the same age, in a relative distance from each other. And A goes through life like that until A runs into this girl. He actually jumps into the body of her boyfriend and then begins to fall in love with her that day as they spend the day together. She not realizing, of course, that out of nowhere, her boyfriend is just a nice guy suddenly. Just all of a sudden, he's really romantic and sweet and listening to her and sharing the same jokes. Then the next day, he goes back to being a complete jerk, and she just doesn't get it at all. So A has to convince her in various different forms that I shouldn't say, it doesn't have a gender. Right. A does not have a gender. And got to convince this girl that it exists, that this is a thing that's actually happening. The movie seems to set up a lot of questions about identity and identity politics, and it likes to set up those things and pretend to have relevance, but it doesn't have any kind of courage to actually ask those questions or delve into the idea of identity and attraction and how much physical attraction matters in a relationship and that type of thing. It doesn't have any nerve because it keeps putting A in the body of cute boys anytime that they want to have a romantic scene. So it's always A just somehow happens to end up in the body of a cute boy. One time, she ends up in the body of a cute girl and they share a kiss. But again, this is not going to be referenced or remembered for the rest of the movie. They just do it one time as, I don't know, for whatever reason, marketing purposes, and then it's never mentioned again because identity really doesn't have anything to do with this. It's about, we have a clever premise, and so basically we just have the idea, and we've got a semblance of a relevant idea, and that's it. We're done. We don't have to do anything else. We've done all of our homework, and that's just a gutless way to make a movie.
Can I ask a question about it? When she jumps in their body, do they remember that day?
They can if he lets them, but he tends not to. He tends to, I keep saying he, A, tries not to make any impact on their life. He tries to live their life as they live it, so as not to be remembered.
So do they just think they slept for an extra day, or like what?
They're not really sure, but the Justin character, the boyfriend, he doesn't remember anything of the day that A spent with his girlfriend. Doesn't remember any of it. It seemed to him like a day he just completely forgot. He thought he got wasted and was drunk all day and didn't remember it.
That makes sense. At least they went that route.
Mm-hmm.
That's an answer.
But then they fudge that, though, later, that A could tell them, like, could converse with their consciousness and tell them that this happened. So, who knows?
Your headline of the review said it was borderline offensive.
Right, yeah. It's borderline offensive for the way that it uses gender politics and identity politics and LGBTQ themes. It uses that as a marketing purpose, as a way of saying, hey, this is a relevant movie, you guys. It's not. It has no guts. It has no purpose. It has no intent of actually exploring those ideas. It just wants to use those ideas to tell you that it's relevant.
Cool. Is that it?
Josh, do you have a question?
No. I'd like to wipe these from the face of the earth, just like you'd like to wipe Adam Sandler's films from the face of the earth. I have nothing good to add.
You're done with YA fantasy romance?
Yes.
He just reads them now.
They're never as good as the book.
Annihilation.
What the hell is this movie? I love this movie.
That's about right.
That's pretty much explains it. Natalie Portman is the star here. She is a scientist, a teacher, and also a former soldier. She was married to Oscar Isaac. He has gone missing, and then suddenly he just shows up again. Where was he? Why is he not dead? He doesn't really have any answers. But when she goes to send him to the hospital after he gets sick, they get picked up by the military and taken to this place where there's this phenomenon that they're calling the shimmer. And it's basically this giant shimmery wall. And if you walk through it, something has changed. And this is in the southern U.S., and suddenly the whole environment is different. Animals are different. Time doesn't seem to play by the rules that time is supposed to play by. And it is gorgeous. Like this area, this whatever is within the shimmer is utterly beautiful and imagined so brilliantly by Alex Garland and his team. It blows your mind. Your eyes are just feasting on every single thing that you see. Meanwhile, there's this really interesting story going on that's basically, how do I describe this? It's like a John Carpenter movie going on, but then there's also this wide beauty going on at the same time. Like
I read your review, and he's like John Carpenter, Ridley Scott, Terrence Malick, Stanley Kubrick.
Exactly.
I'm just like, what the fuck? He's literally just naming directors. And then I went and saw it. I'm like, I can kind of see a John Carpenter, Sam Raimi thing going on here, but I get
the Terrence Malick.
Yeah.
All those influences are there, and they're all perfectly relevant to what this movie is, because at times it does just sit there and sort of take in what you're seeing. Specifically, there's a scene late in the movie with these crystal trees that it just lingers on, and it's not unlike a Terrence Malick shot. It really is. But then there's some gore in this movie that is very reminiscent of The Thing. And some really terrifying body horror in this movie that you can't look away from. What was the point of it? What are we supposed to take away from it? How did it even end? I don't really know. Like, I can't say exactly what I think even happened. I think I know, but I don't really care, because it was the experience of this movie that really mattered to me, and that's really what I take away from it, is this is an experience.
It could be I mean, the people that are calling it boring, I get it. It isn't a science fiction movie as much as they say it is. It really isn't. But if you're going in there wanting to see a science fiction movie, I could see people being bored, but in a lot of ways, it's like Arrival meets Mother. I mean, that's kind of such a random. But it goes back to your directing comparisons. It's just a weird. I don't know. I'll let Josh go before I say too much more.
The science fiction aspect of it, of course, is what intrigues me the most. What are they going to do and say in this movie that sticks with me and makes me ask questions? And it succeeds very highly on all those levels. In fact, I'm still thinking about it a number of days later. And I don't know exactly what happened, and I'm tempted to read a book, but my fiance has told me, having read the book before seeing the movie, the movie's nothing like the book. There's a lot of stuff left out. There are multiple plot points that are just completely forgotten about in the movie. And I read a quote from Alex Garland that says he read the book but didn't want to reread it while making the movie. He wanted to make a movie that was like a dream of the book, which is a great way of saying you didn't want to adapt the source material. But he also has kind of a point. Sometimes when you're reading a book, it gives you all of the details, and you fill in your own visual stimuli as what it's supposed to look like, etc. The way that this movie has turned out, I can't imagine going back to the book. There's enough there already on screen to make me fill in a bunch of gaps on my own. I want to see more movie, perhaps, like it's conceivable that maybe there's another movie involved with this. I'm down for that. That's absolutely for sure. The comparison to The Thing is great because the gore scenes in this movie actually did make my skin crawl a little bit. And that's hard to do. And I'm not saying that I'm like desensitized to every single thing that I see, but The Thing really bothers me. And some of the mutations that take place in this film, one specifically, there's a sound that comes from a creature that really made my skin crawl. And I wasn't, for the first time in a long time, maybe since Under the Skin, I would say but it is more like a conventional, I know what's going to happen type of horror film. But Under the Skin made me unnerved. Like, I don't know exactly what's going to happen next, even though I've seen this kind of thing before. I was very disturbed by a lot of what I saw. And then the end is so nebulous as to what actually I've just seen. I'm trying to think of science, and then I don't know much about science, apparently. And this idea of, gosh, I feel so bad. Like, I want to say things that are spoilers, but I'm worried about it.
We will, after the show, rather than a flip chart, we'll kind of give our opinions of what we think happened.
Okay.
And do all that spoilery stuff.
The good thing is the film gives you just enough without being expository, so that you can still take away some ideas and apply it to what you already know of science. It's fascinating. Was I enraptured by this as much as other science fiction films? No. Because it does have a pacing issue in certain parts of the film, but that's a picky thing that I'm doing to this film. Sometimes science fiction enraptures me because it's got a pacing to it that's consistent throughout. This does stall a little bit towards the middle, but all of the good stuff is really good stuff. It's in the upper echelon of science fiction for me.
And I would argue that, like, I know what you're saying, and I think on a conventional level it does, but I think Under the Skin, I believe the same point was mentioned there. I think it's intentional, and it's made for a select audience. It's not a blockbuster science fiction movie, so I see why the pacing doesn't work for certain people, but I don't know. You need it there. And back to what the very beginning of what Sean was saying is this movie could have been called I Don't Know. Because that's the most popular phrase in this movie, which is why I say it's not really a science fiction movie, because it goes to a place that we've never even scratched the surface on, where science can't keep up and no one comes out of this humor thing. So there's just no science behind it, and it's really about human beings dealing with things that they don't understand, and that's kind of the broad point, but it's, I don't know.
I just think this when you put this alongside Ex Machina, it just shows that Alex Garland is a genius. He's right there with like the Villeneuves and that group of amazing directors that we're getting right now. This remarkable generation of directors that we have right now, he's right there with them.
I would even go back to Sunshine, because it's his script, and if you gave that to him as a director over what Danny Boyle did with Garland's material, that's already a more interesting film, because it takes the hyperkineticism of Danny Boyle out of the picture and it makes it a more introspective film. It didn't blow me away, but I do love that movie. And you're right, though. Anything that he does from now on, it's first showing material for me.
We haven't even talked about Natalie Portman.
Yeah, she was kind of the bad part of it. No, we haven't.
I liked the way she played this. I liked the way that I bought into her as both a scientist and a former soldier. I really did. I like the way she holds a weapon, the way she keeps her head in a swivel. I mean, but also the thoughtfulness of a scientist on top of that. I bought into it.
She certainly had, at least for the first half of the film, this strong disconnect of somebody that has really nothing to lose, and so you understood why she would say, yes, I'll go into the shimmer. I don't have anything going on for me. She played that desperation well. And then you could argue that she has redeeming things, or she's attempting to redeem throughout the latter half of the film, and just keeps digging deeper and deeper into it, when really her plan to just get out of it would be a great plan. She's sticking with it to try and find some answers.
Yeah, I really bought everybody's reason going. Even Oscar Isaac's. In hindsight, it makes a lot of sense why he's there. But really, all of them have. And there's a line in it that's something about, I'm going to screw it up. No one's really suicidal; they're just self-destructive, or something along. I really butchered it because that's not what it is, but. Everybody has a form of self-destruction in them, and it really, the whole movie, plays on that line, with every character in some way, in some shape or form. Thought we'd talk more about Annihilation. I mean, we will once we can be more spoilery, I'm sure. But
yeah, because there's a few things I want to compare it to, and a couple of plot points I'd like to mention that I think are too spoilery.
That said, I don't know what we're spoiling, because
we don't know what it was.
I will say this: we mentioned movies like Enemy, which we haven't, but Enemy, Under the Skin. I do think it's a step below those, just barely, like a half a step maybe, and even Arrival. It's just not, because it doesn't, and even Mother for that matter, it doesn't seem to make up its mind. Even though I'm sure it seemed like they were intentionally letting you decide what happened. And that was the only thing I wouldn't even call it bad. It just, Mother had the balls to say, this is what it is. And so did Arrival and all these other movies. And this one didn't, I think. Guess we'll find out.
I think Arrival is a better movie than this. But in many ways, Arrival is a far more conventional movie than this.
Yeah, but it also has turned a lot of science fiction people off. Like, what the hell was that?
It's going to turn off a lot of people who see this. I'm betting there's plenty of walkouts on Annihilation. I'm betting there are plenty of people who asked for their money back afterwards because it's not a movie. It's not a typical movie. There's no. I can give you kind of a thumbnail sketch of the narrative, but it's not really what this is.
And like Josh said, there's a long. It does slow down in the middle. There's moments that speed up real quick and then it slows down again, but it does kind of. I guess it didn't drag for me because I think I was prepared for it because I did read the reviews on it beforehand, and I read Jason from New Mexico was not a fan of it, and I was kind of prepared to be on his team. And I'm not, and I get everything he's saying. He's not wrong. It just you watched it in a different tone than we did, I think.
Again, I'll go back to the Malick comparison. I mean, that's another guy who makes movies that are very divisive. And either you're in for the Malick experience or you're not. And in this case, if you're in for the Garland experience, then you're in. If you're not, forget it.
Anything else on Annihilation?
Nothing that I feel like I can say now.
Yeah, so stick around after the little hangover music, or that is, and we'll talk more about Annihilation. But let's stick with the Natalie Portman theme and head over to our undisputed classic, Black Swan.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is the main event for the linear, legitimate, and universally recognized, undisputed
Classic.
Yes, and I'm so happy we did this because it's been a while since I watched Black Swan, and it like the experience that I had with There Will Be Blood last year. I'm having that experience with Black Swan this time, seeing it in a kind of a very different way. Black Swan, of course, for if you don't somehow know, is about a ballet dancer who begins to kind of come apart at the seams. She's playing the White Swan and the Black Swan in a production of Swan Lake that is not a traditional version. It's one created by this character named Tomas, and I forget the actor's name every time.
Vincent Castle.
Thank you, Vincent Castle, who is challenging her and pushing her. She's brilliant at technique, but she doesn't have the seductive quality that the Black Swan calls for. And where we're going in this movie is, again, what Aronofsky likes to do with metaphor is be very obvious with what his metaphors are. And I think the obvious metaphor here is the Black Swan represents her sexual repression and her fear of sex. She's been raised in a repressive society. Ballet artists, ballet dancers tend to be sheltered from the world. They tend to do nothing but ballet. In her case, she's got a domineering mother who is also a ballet dancer and has kept the world away from her, Barbara Hershey. And so she's, even at her age, she's in her early 20s, I would think, she still calls her mom mommy. Like, she still has all these childish things around her room. So she has no real sexual experience to go by. And the Black Swan seems to be calling her towards this sexual awakening. And we see signposts of that throughout. Her relationship with Tomas, who has a history of sleeping with his lead dancers. Then you've got the character played by Mila Kunis, who represents another barrier of sexuality. And as she continues to kind of come apart, her fear of this kind of builds throughout. It's building towards this stunner of an ending that really hit me hard this time, harder than it did the first time I saw this. I think I need more time with an Aronofsky movie. Honestly, I might have to watch The Fountain now just to see if maybe I see it differently.
No.
We don't know.
Like, I do need to see Mother again to try and get past my issues with that movie because it was so very well accomplished directorially. But watching The Black Swan this time and recognizing fully the metaphor, I kind of got it the first time, but I was kind of more focused on the performances and the ballet aspects. This time I really picked up on that notion of sexual repression and what that was the real center focus of this. You can see it throughout. I mean, the first time she attempts to masturbate, she's in her room alone, or she thinks she's alone, then she wakes up and she looks over and there's her mom. I mean, this not the most horrifying moment you could have as a child.
As a person.
It's mortifying. It's a mortifying moment. And that happens throughout. You know, you see her later making another attempt at masturbation in the bathroom, and the Black Swan begins to appear to her again. She has this another moment of this body horror that keeps happening throughout the film. That's another aspect of this too. Is the body horror of this film is really gross and really disturbing. When she begins to physically transform into the Black Swan, it is terrifying. And later on, as she seems to form into the Black Swan on stage, it's both beautiful but also horrific in a way. And Aronofsky captures it brilliantly.
Yeah, this is a hell of a disturbing film. Natalie Portman herself, I don't think has ever been better than this movie. And it's because she's doing things that aren't conventional. You can say what you want about Annihilation, and she plays it well. It's not exactly what I would call the most challenging possible role. And in this one, she's got to play two sides to herself, and they're so distinctly different that she's really playing two roles. I think that's obvious, but I think it's so much harder as somebody like Natalie Portman to play the repressed person first, and then on the other side look the way that she does the rest of the film when she's acting as the Black Swan. It's just such a dynamic performance. In Aronofsky films, I've seen all of his films except The Wrestler. And I've only seen them all one time because I'm always done with them after I've seen them. Requiem for a Dream, I'll never go back to that movie. I mean, it just
make you. I will tie you up down here.
I will say the dream
Clockwork
of that
Orange
movie
your eyes.
is beautiful as that is in certain moments. It's also terrifying, and that's this one too. I don't ever want to see it again, and here I am watching an Aronofsky film for the second time again.
See, I will watch Black Swan again and again and again. After this time, now that I'm in it, I had this experience with it. I'm ready to watch it again.
The scenes of the wings spreading out and all, like the ballet dancers in general, kind of they're such physical specimens, but also what they do to their feet and their toes, and it's so gruesome to hear the stories of that, and then to watch it in this movie. I can feel it. I have sympathy pains while watching this movie.
The sound design is it's like a Saw movie at times.
Yes.
Like it's that level of sound design. When she cracks her toenail early in the movie, it is painful.
Oh,
the visual and the sound.
So in terms of a disturbing film, not only with the imagery but the ideas behind it, this is one of the more accomplished films that I can remember, say, over the past decade or so. But I'll maintain I don't want to have this as part of my collection. It's something that's that disturbing. I love it, though. I mean, it's my favorite of the Aronofsky films that I've seen. I don't know if The Wrestler could possibly overtake this one, but
in a lot of ways, it's a similar movie, but in other ways, it's not. Wrestlers is his biggest. Well, I guess Noah. I forget that movie exists, but it's not like it's like handheld, and it's not your typical. It's more stripped down.
And interestingly enough, it's his most conventional and easily his most sentimental movie, even as it is kind of brutal.
Right. But yeah, Black Swan is one of the scariest movies I've ever seen.
I would be fascinated, though, to hear a non-wrestling fan's take on The Wrestler, because we're both wrestling fans. We kind of have a background on who Randy the Ram is kind of based on, and kind of a basis of what he's going through. It'd be fascinating to hear what you think of that.
we'll get to it, I'm sure.
Yeah, and I think you'll enjoy it to an extent. But yeah, Black Swan, I own it. I mean, I bought it. I have never gone back to watch it, and to the point where I kind of forgot what her issue was. For some reason, I thought she had an eating disorder, and I forgot kind of what it was. It was sexual repression, and I remember it at the time, and then it all came back, and it was just I don't know. It really is weird how that is maybe the scariest movie I've ever seen in a weird way, and it comes back to real life being scarier than monsters, and this is someone dealing with multiple things. I mean, her whole life is ballet, to the point where what happens to her, and I don't know. And even the lesbian scene, the sex scene, that is such a creepy. When all of a sudden she pops up at the bottom, it was just. I don't know. I mean, how do you make Mila Kunis and Natalie Portman fooling around scare the crap out of you? I don't really know how you do that, but Darren Aronofsky did it.
Yep.
There are other layers to this as well, though. When you consider there's actually like a lot of deathly imagery in this as well, and the fear of death is kind of explored, and the fear of obsolescence. Like you've got Winona Ryder's character, who's seems like a very peripheral character, but she plays into the themes of fear, because this is what Natalie Portman is fearing for herself. Is how soon is this going to end for me? It's ending for her now. How long do I have in this? And that what she goes through with her is very interesting too.
Yeah.
You can take this movie and set it in a lot of different positions in life too, not just the ballet. I go back to the idea of the athlete who is brought up under intense training their entire childhood and entire teenage years. Their parents control their funding, their training, their food, et cetera, and they have no room for expression, or at least little room for expression. And then as soon as they're out on their own, it's hookers and coke all night long. The story of Josh Hamilton from baseball is one that comes to mind as a dude that finally got on his own, and he was out of baseball within a few years because he couldn't control, because he never had a chance to grow up. And when I look at this movie, it's like all of those stories. And with the Olympics just ending, I think of that too. And it's not that there aren't people that grow up in a healthy fashion that are Olympians or professional ballet dancers. It's just that it's likely that they don't have the most healthy way of growing up. I mean, you're raising a gymnast, and I have a pretty good feeling that she has a normal childhood.
Well, she did until I saw Black Swan. And now I know what I need to do.
I see. To push her over the edge. I see.
Not to take this into an odd direction, but when you talk about this type of story applying in very different ways, it does, and it leads me kind of back to that Larry Nasser thing that just took place with the gymnast. Because that was such a closed culture, and because those girls were so sheltered from the rest of the a normal childhood, if you will, it makes them much more vulnerable to a situation like that. Not that this was in any way their fault; it was entirely Larry Nasser. But I'm saying this type of culture makes a Larry Nasser possible.
Well, yeah, and it explains why they didn't say anything. That really helps why it continued to happen without anybody ever coming out and saying stuff. It's this movie will help you understand that, provided you're watching it in the right menu. I suppose this could be another movie where you're like, what the fuck is this? Anything with Aronofsky.
Right, or somebody said there's lesbian sex in it, and you pop it in, so to speak.
Yeah, good luck jerking off to this.
Yeah, right?
I'm sure people have.
It was hard.
Maybe out of context.
I'm kidding.
But I succeeded.
I persevered.
That and the Jennifer Lawrence mother scene. I'm not waiting for Red Sparrow. I'm just going to use mother.
I did hear something about Red Sparrow this week.
Oh, yeah. Well, she was on Mark Maron's podcast, and he was like, you want to promote the movie? She's like, not really, but I guess I have to. I'm naked in it. Go see it. That was how she promoted it.
Oh, all right.
So, what's the other movie coming out? Death Wish? Sorry, might pass on you for Red Sparrow this week. Sorry, Eli Roth. But yeah, Black Swan. If you haven't, if really any Aronofsky movie, try to see it. Give it a shot. It's a challenge. It's.
You could probably skip Noah.
I keep forgetting that.
I kind of want to watch Noah again just to see again if there's something else there.
Number 18 in 1988. Squeezed and pulled and hurt my neck in 1988.
Squeezed and pulled and hurt your neck in 1988.
1988.
Okay, 1988 is fun this week in that we have a number of them. Let's get past the ones that we don't care about. Apprentice to Murder, starring Donald Sutherland. No, let's forget it. Okay, Hairspray, John Waters movie, inspired an additional Hairspray, a live musical, if I'm not mistaken, not that long ago. So therefore, I feel like I've seen Hairspray, just not the John Waters version. Either of you seen the original?
I liked it.
Nope.
Okay.
It's been a while.
This is the one that I always confuse with Hair, which has a naked Beverly DeAngelis in it. So you can imagine
which is
why
the only thing you remember about it.
Yes. I'm not going to lie. That is true. Also, Taffin with Pierce Brosnan, kind of his intro to he could be Bond someday, right? I mean, it was the thing he got to do when he was on break from Remington Steele or something.
Yeah, he is like really handsome in this movie. Like, he is really good looking in this movie. Like
I wouldn't throw him out of bed.
He's always been a good looking guy, but like he looks like Tom Cruise, like young Tom Cruise in this movie, but Irish with that accent. I'm kind of in love with him right now. No,
I wouldn't throw him out of bed.
I'm secure enough in my manhood to say that he is a very handsome dude in this movie. That's really the only thing I can say about Taffin. It's not much of a movie. It's more like a series, like a TV show. He goes around this Irish town being kind of a fixer for people. If you don't pay your debts, you call Taffin. Taffin goes to the guy and beats him down and gets your money for you. He ends up having to try and stop a massive sewage plant from being built over his soccer field, and that becomes the focus of the movie. But for like the first hour, it's just like a couple episodes of a half-hour TV show being strung together.
I noticed that the typical Irish cast is a part of this. You've got Alison Doody and Patrick Bergin of Patriot Games involved. So, yeah, that's pretty typical. But, I mean, something like this, when they wanted him for Bond and he couldn't do it because he was under contract, it's kind of cool that he at least got to do something outside of that TV show. Also, very exciting.
Oh, sorry, I haven't been paying attention.
No, that's okay.
You're not drooling over Pierce Brosnan like we are.
Oh, that's who was hot? Yeah, he's good looking.
Speaking of people drooling over people, River Phoenix starred in a movie that turned 30 this weekend called A Night in the Life of Jimmy Reardon, or, depending on how you're looking at it, it's based on a novel called You Never Kiss Me Goodbye or something like that. And the version that I watched was called You Never Kiss Me Goodbye. The one that you can find to rent on Amazon, though, is called A Night in the Life of Jimmy Reardon. And the thing is, starting both of them gave me different songs and different opening scenes, etc., and different setups for each film. Now, I didn't complete both of them because the one that I did watch all the way through was garbage. I mean, I hated it. River Phoenix's talents here is a very brooding young man with gobs of sex appeal. I mean, I assumed that with Ione Skye in this movie and Meredith Salinger that this was going to be like a fun teen romp in the vein of something like a John Hughes movie. But instead, it's borderline misogynistic. And if you saw it, you'd know what I mean, in that he just does stuff. He starts doing stuff to girls. And they don't seem to mind, and they push him off. But it's kind of like, it's not, you're a bad dude for doing this. It's hit me up later when I'm ready for it. Okay, it's got a
boys
bad
will be boys.
Right. It's got a bad vibe to it in that way, and the film is more along the lines of he's supposed to be a poet and he's self-narrating throughout the entire film, but it's not River Phoenix's voice. I feel like they added that at some point to explain why his character was such an asshole throughout the whole film. But what's surprised me too, a little bit into the film, you see Matthew Perry, a very young Matthew Perry, as his supposed best friend. So if you're a fan of Friends, like I am, seeing Matthew Perry was like, oh, hey, maybe this movie is going to be something. It's going to be good. But it's not. It's really terrible. I remember really wanting to see this when I saw the poster in the theater. I think it was just the design of the poster and the bright colors that I said I could see this, but it's not at all for kids.
Well, yeah, that's the thing, is that this was marketed like a kid's movie, like a teen movie, like a comedy, like a Breakfast Club, like 16 Candles. It looks like it's supposed to be some kind of funny romp.
Yes, and as a PG-13 film, you would think then, okay, then you can get a slightly younger teenage crowd. But this is not for kids at all.
Weirdly enough, there was a movie around the same time with Winona Ryder that had a similarly long title, Roxy Carmichael.
Oh, Welcome Home, Roxy Carmichael.
Yeah, which was this movie, which was a very smart character, a very smart teenager, smarter than everybody else, who was very funny, and the movie centered on her, and it leads you to believe that this could be a similar thing, and it's totally not.
Yeah. It does make me kind of yearn for River Phoenix to still be alive, because you can see the flashes of brilliance in him. He just didn't get enough time to realize that.
On a friend's side note, I watched a movie with Matt LeBlanc.
Ed?
Lovesick. There's a new Sean said there's a new Netflix movie, was it Mute? And then when I was looking for it, which I ended up finding it eventually, but the one that popped up ahead of it was called Lovesick or something like that, with Matt LeBlanc and Ali Larter. Larder or whatever.
And you're like, what's this?
Is she in a whipped cream bikini? I'm going to check this out. He is not. But I went to the end just to find out.
It's good to see that Joey's still getting work. Also in '88, Frantic, directed by Roman Polanski. I had a mode there in like 1998, 99 where I decided Harrison Ford is my favorite actor. I'm going to see everything that he's ever done. And so I checked out Presumed Innocent and Frantic and Witness, et al. I didn't get to The Mosquito Coast at the time. I really should have, because that's the best of all of these. But I don't remember much from Frantic, because in my head, last week when we were previewing 1988, I said, oh, Harrison Ford and Raul Julia. No, that's Presumed Innocent. Frantic is a totally different movie, and it's actually not as good as Presumed Innocent. You watched it this week, though, and did a review.
Watched it and wrote about it, yes. And this was disappointing because there was a lot of people who had a lot of nice things to say about this. Ebert liked it. Other critics gave it positive reviews. It's Polanski trying to pay homage to Hitchcock. But Polanski is Polanski, and he doesn't really need to do homages to other directors. He needs to be Polanski, you know. So I'm sitting there kind of hoping to see something at least stylistically reminiscent of like Rosemary's Baby that has, you know, those interesting shots that he's so known for. And here he's just trying to make a Hitchcock movie, and that's not really his style, and he doesn't really understand the tone. And he cast this woman whose name is escaping me now.
Betty Buckley?
That's the wife.
Emmanuel
Sainer,
yeah,
who is supposed to be this kind of classically Hitchcock blonde through the eye of Polanski, and she's just an empty vessel. She doesn't have any of the... When you look at Hitchcock's movies, and especially like Vertigo, you can see in his blondes an entirely other movie that's happening in their eyes. And that's just the way he framed them. And you can say what you want about the way Hitchcock treated his women. The bottom line is, when he shot them, he was giving them an opportunity to act and really be a huge part of what he's trying to do. Sainer is just this empty vessel who doesn't do anything. She's not a great actress. She's not a great presence. She's pretty, but she doesn't really do anything. And it leaves Harrison Ford just kind of spinning his wheels most of the time. And the movie doesn't understand Hitchcock's kind of pace. Hitchcock had a perfectly calibrated pace, whereas this one lingers too long, and it's trying to ape those ideas, but it just doesn't have it. And it's really unfortunate, because Polanski is incredibly talented. Again, leaving out all of his terrific personal life stuff, he's a terrific director in many ways, and he's made many great movies, but this one is not one of them.
Is it possible he just had bad actors?
Hey, now.
I don't think anybody in this lead role could have done as well as Ford did. He played it as best he could, but he's acting against a wall.
To be fair, too, that time period that I was watching all the Harrison Ford movies, Presumed Innocent was purchased, and Witness was purchased. Working Girl was even purchased. And
Regarding Henry?
I don't like that movie. I really don't.
But at some point, don't you just feel like you're watching the same thing over and over again? That's kind of what I had with Harrison Ford.
Well, I'm not making a good point, of course, by saying that I forgot that Frantic didn't have Raul Julia in it, and they're kind of a mixed up font, mixed up poster, the whole thing.
I think when it comes to Harrison Ford, he has to be forced to have fun for his movies to be good, maybe? Like, when he's forced to have fun in Star Wars, he's great. When he's forced to have fun in Indiana Jones, he's great. Anything else, he's kind of allowed to be that dour, angry Harrison Ford, and that's not nearly as much fun.
Unless he's the president.
No, even then.
Get off my plane. Wow, you do a really good Harrison Ford. That's good.
I've practiced that one for years. 20 years.
What else he got? Is that the only one?
That's the only
That's
one.
my one.
The last one is...
That's actually any Harrison Ford impression I do. I just do it like that.
It's spot on.
How dare you, sir?
You guys know who Ralph Garman is?
You find that man. Yes, of course.
Have you ever heard his Harrison Ford?
No.
Pretty much all he does.
He is kind of a grumpy old bastard that likes to crash planes. Anyways. Bloodsport turned 30. I'm leaving that till the end.
Kumote.
Yeah, okay.
Best ending of all time, right?
I tried really hard to take Bloodsport not seriously, but as it was. And if you do that, it's a watchable film, okay? There was nothing wrong with its watchability. But Van Damme, speaking of voids, like Emmanuel Senior, the Muscles from Brussels is a terrible actor. I mean, I think that's it's a given in theory. He's the muscle behind the camera. You know, he's meant to be a martial arts expert, and he does that very well. He does the splits very well in this movie too. Congratulations. But I guess the fighting itself wasn't as gruesome or intense as I was hoping that it would be. With martial arts and a movie called Bloodsport, I'm kind of hoping for something that's really knock down, drag out, and it looked very choreographed most of the time. And I mean, you throw in the guy that looks like Lyle Alzado in this movie, Donald Gibb, I think is his name. You throw him in there for some comic relief. Yes, thank you.
Nerds!
Yes.
Like Harrison Ford as Ogre.
Title of the podcast: Harrison Ford as Ogre. It's fun to an extent, but then I kind of got lost in the fact that Van Damme is so bad, and the action itself doesn't carry it. So, am I interested in watching more Van Damme films now that I've seen this one? No, I can't imagine it would get better.
You've seen the best one.
Have I really? Would you say that Bloodsport's the best one?
Sudden Impact.
This one, this has that. This is the closest.
The Quest.
This is the closest he comes to Rocky IV.
Okay, because I can see that,
and that's kind of where the bar ends with him too, though.
He does not have another gear,
and it's not as fun as Rocky IV, but it has the end. I mean, it's kind of more over the top, but with karate or whatever.
Okay,
it is so cheesy. But if you really want to enjoy Bloodsport, you have to listen to How Did This Get Made? Do Bloodsport, because it is phenomenal. Jason Mantzoukas and Paul Scheer just have such a great time doing that movie.
I was surprised to see at the beginning of the film, too, the Canon Films logo comes up, and this has to have been one of the last ones that they made, right? Because we're in 88, and I remember talking a number of months ago about a Canon film being the one that sunk it. Well, He-Man was back in August of 87, and I just don't remember talking about that one as the one that sunk the entire thing. And we talked about Braddock a few weeks ago, which was also Canon, but...
Superman 4 was in that era.
Yes, last summer.
Kind of
yeah, whenever I watch this, I usually start the last 20 minutes, and that's kind of all just a little tournament at the end was kind of all I watched ever. I couldn't even tell you what happens at the beginning. I forgot.
Who is the woman in that movie? She is beautiful.
In Bloodsport?
Yeah.
No women.
Someone you haven't seen again. But I looked up her IMDb to see her in other things, and she kind of had like a Helen Slater look to her. Huh. But I hadn't seen anything else she had been in.
Yeah. Bloodsport's hilarious. It's a great unintentional comedy.
So, but you miss the Stallone or Schwarzenegger. You'd rather watch them than.
Absolutely.
Not this role.
For that matter,
well, no, but they're movies.
At least Steven Seagal made a good movie. Under Siege is a good movie. I enjoy that one for what it is, okay? Van Damme...
Universal Soldier is better than Bloodsport.
Okay.
We'll go from that.
That's the one that I was like, if I'm going to start with a Van Damme film, I should probably start with the Emmerich film.
Now, again, you got to remember, it's not good.
You're grading at a curve.
Lower the bar.
And really, A+ is Rocky IV here. That's the best movie of all time in this world that I'm creating.
I gotta say though, Van Damme does such great. There are Stallone and Schwarzenegger movies that I don't even want to finish once I start them. I want to turn them off. But I could sit and watch all of Time Cop because it's funny. Because it's not supposed to be funny, but it's funny. And the hockey movie. What's the hockey one? That movie, I can't remember the title of it, but it makes me laugh every time, and I cannot turn it off.
He's in a hockey movie?
He doesn't play a hockey player. They're trying to blow up the hockey arena. He's trying to stop them. Although he does dress up as a goalie at one point.
And they filmed a lot of it during a hockey game. I remember ESPN.
It's in Pittsburgh during a Penguins game.
Sudden Impact sounds like that would be the name of the movie.
Be.
Maybe. I should know this, but I mentioned Sudden Impact earlier just because I remembered the title.
Hard Target has some cool imagery, like fire behind him with long mullety hair, but it's not good.
Another great laugh. Him and Dennis Rodman together is hilarious. Unintentionally, not intentionally.
That's double.
It's unintentionally, but it's still just. It's too predictably funny. I don't know.
They kind of know how bad it is, and that kind of does take away from the fun.
There's something Tommy Wiseau like about Van Damme's delivery. Okay, when he's trying to say things, with a straight face, and he's this hulking man that says, "Yeah, I don't know, I want to help your family." It doesn't seem right.
He's hulking, but he's also tiny. He's also like 5'4" or something.
And you say he's a martial artist expert, but really he's more of like a dancer yoga guy.
Okay, I didn't say he was a martial arts expert. The film's poster says martial arts expert Jean-Claude Van Damme.
Like I'm saying, Chuck Norris could clean the floor with him, probably.
No doubt.
But I would say that about Van Damme, when it comes to all these terrible movies that he's made, all of them add up to JCVD, which is he needs to make all these bad movies so he can have the pathos to pull off JCVD in such a unique and actually very good way.
More unique than good. But I know what he's not.
Sure.
It wouldn't be the same movie with a different actor.
One is called JCVD.
But I'm saying that it's all the pathos that he's built up over his numerous bad movies make up to this one.
I thought it was going to be better, though. I'm going to be honest. From all the buzz it had going in, he's still pretty bad in it. But he plays himself.
Of course.
Hence the title. There's your Jean-Claude Van Damme podcast.
How did that happen?
I don't know. I have a feeling in the next few years we'll continue coming upon the once a year, maybe twice a year Van Damme film.
Nord runs okay. The Roseanne Arquette.
What's the one with Natasha Henstridge in? I remember that poster. Is that Sudden Impact?
I don't know. Who directed Hard Target?
Hard Target. Was that John Woo?
Yeah, with John Woo. That's right.
That's
Sorry,
what it was, yeah.
And everybody was like, why does it look like a John Woo movie? I want to see a Van Damme movie.
Before we wrap up, are we done with 80? We're done with 88.
Yes, we're done with 88.
Thank God.
You mentioned Ralph Garman earlier. That reminded me of Kevin Smith, and just wanted to say that I'm glad to know he's going to be okay.
Well, we think he's going to be okay.
I mean, he was tweeting from his bed. I think he's going to be all right.
Well, I think there's more. I don't know how long he's going to be in the hospital or whatever, because I haven't heard anything since. But,
right.
Yeah, that was crazy. He had a heart attack Monday morning, or Sunday night, I guess, while filming a new comedy special. Which I wonder how I'm sure he'll work this in, because that's what he does. But, yeah, scary stuff.
How old is Kevin Smith? I mean, 45?
47.
47. Okay. I guess we're coming upon that time.
I might be ready to go vegan.
That was how he ended it.
I'm only 5 years younger than him. I'm starting to think that way now, too.
Yeah, we're like 10.
I've not had the kind of weight problems that he had. I have a weight problem, but not the kind that he has.
Yeah, he has lost a significant amount of weight, but yeah, he's still a big guy.
Bacon is still delicious. I don't have a problem with this.
He'll shave a few years off the end of the life for a couple more pieces of bacon.
I'd be lucky if I make it to 50 anyway, so we'll see.
Think about the podcast, man.
I am. I can only give you 20 good years, man.
So now
well, 20 mediocre years. Let's not get ahead of ourselves here.
Next week, we've got Death Wish and Red Sparrow. So I think the obvious classic is Reds. The movie based on the Cincinnati baseball team.
The Big Red Machine back in 1973. No.
Starring Warren Beatty as Pete Rose.
Yeah, I mean, I might watch Death Wish as well. I don't know. We'll see.
I'm going to watch Death Wish because I'm going to write about Death Wish and Death Wish. So,
and I'm genuinely curious about Death Wish. Eli Roth making a non-Eli Roth movie with Bruce Willis.
Will it be a non-Eli Roth movie? I mean, he's still going to find ways to work that.
Well, but he didn't write it. It's like not his property. He's just kind of doing it. That's what I mean by non-Eli Roth movie. So I'm kind of curious there.
50% less hateful towards women. That's what.
I'll never get behind that statement.
It's an interesting film for this period of time. I'll just give it that.
Yeah, good timing on this.
Yeah, I'm surprised they're releasing it the way they are. Based on maybe I suppose things could change, but they've been pushing it pretty hard on TV. So who knows? And then obviously we talked about Red Sparrow and why we're all seeing that. So
Yeah. Wait a minute.
Next week, we did top 5 Vigilantes will be our top 5 with Reds as the classic. What comes out in 88? Anything
We've got
note?
4 films that I had never heard of before I looked them up today, and they all made little amount of money. But Switching Channel seems like the most interesting one. Burt Reynolds, Kathleen Turner, broadcast journalism movie.
A remake.
Probably bad, but
It's actually a remake of Cary Grant movie from the 1930s, one of my mom's favorites, and it's actually really good. Surprisingly really good. I think
the
you should
88
definitely
version.
watch that. Yeah.
Okay, well, that was the one that caught my eye for sure.
All right. As always, I want to thank our Patreon supporters. If you want to be a supporter, ihatecritics.net/Patreon. We'll start with our key grip level and Charlie Messing. Our character actors, Christina, Cato, and Josh.
I think this is the beginning of a beautiful friendship.
Our special effects level, Corey.
May the Force be with you.
Our executive producer, Jason from New Mexico.
Bullshit, artist. Am not. Bullshit.
And our movie stars, Dave Severs and Uncle Jeff.
I want the truth. You can't handle the truth.
By the way, just a quick mention, Christina Cato made a comment on my review of Black Panther, and I just wanted to say thank you to her for her kind words.
Yeah, and after Jason, someone on your Annihilation review said they enjoy our podcast as well.
Yes.
Forgot the name, so I apologize for not name dropping you properly. Someday I'll remember it, and we'll do it, and maybe Josh will even find it before I do. But we are going to talk a little bit more about Annihilation, so stick around after the credits. Is there anything
Joseph
else?
Castillo Midget.
There you go. So yeah, stick around after the credits for more talk on Annihilation and iTunes. Go there, subscribe to the podcast, no matter where you listen to us. Apple Podcast if you have an iPhone, and then rate and review the show. We'll read your review on the air, and it'll help us grow. Otherwise, see you next week.
That ought to do it. Thanks very much, Ray.
And we're the 3 best friends that anybody could have. We're the 3 best friends that anyone could have. We're the 3 best friends that anyone can have. And we'll never, ever, 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 ever leave each other. We're the best 3 friends that anybody could have. I mean the 3 best friends that anybody could have. That's right, the 3 best friends.
All right, more Annihilation.
Yeah, there were a few things that I wanted to address. In terms of people who are criticizing this movie, I had some people say that there was the subplot regarding Natalie Portman cheating on Oscar Isaac. That they felt that wasn't necessary. That specifically the sex scene wasn't necessary, and I feel that it was. I felt that was absolutely a necessary scene. I think that.
That's why he goes into there and he wants to stay.
That's why part of why she goes in there, the guilt and thinking that she can save him by going in there. But it's driven much by guilt more than anything. Her guilt over that affair. It's an essential part of the story.
Oh, definitely.
Mm-hmm. I would have to agree. And it gives us a chance to see David Giese making his way into the movie. He's been in a couple of wonderful movies, my all-time favorite movie, as well as Interstellar. So I like seeing his face.
Interstellar.
That's why I said it. Right.
Talk about it like it's a good movie.
So now the ending of this movie ends in a very ambiguous note. We know that Oscar Isaac isn't Oscar Isaac. He's an alien. We believe that Natalie Portman's character has come back from the Shimmer and that she may be the only person to come back from the Shimmer. But she's certainly, at the very least, changed because we see at the end her eyes light up. Kind of. Because it could be a trick of light. It kind of reminded me a little bit of the top at the end of Inception where it cuts out before it actually stops spinning.
You decide.
Right, exactly. And did we see her eyes light up or not? I think we did, but what does that mean? We know that she killed the alien. We watched the alien die. It's an incredible scene. But is a part of the alien coming out with her? Is this part of the alien, or is she evolving now because she was just in the Shimmer and her body's beginning to change in the same way that Other characters change, like I can't remember, Tessa Thompson. Her character starts growing leaves. And, Gina Rodriguez starts. She doesn't change, but she gets eaten by a bear, and then her voice starts coming out of this giant bear-like creature.
Well, yeah. At one point, you see Oscar Isaac cut a guy's stomach out.
Yeah,
and there's like
his intestines
eels
are
of
moving
some
like
sort.
snakes.
Right.
Those are just intestines moving like snakes.
Well, I wondered if it was a new thing forming inside of his
It could
stomach
be
or they
either
were
way.
intestines. That scene that we're talking about at the end with her, with her eye shimmers a little bit. I was thinking that the film shows us that she is fine up until that moment, but she's made tactile contact with the individual, the alien that is not Oscar Isaac, and then it's almost like she finally gets back to him, and then she has her successful moment, and then by touching him, the DNA starts to mix again there. This idea of refraction that they introduce in the movie is fascinating to me, because it's not the typical oozing black liquid that's going to come out of a comet or a meteorite. It's an impact on the atmosphere as a whole, and it fragments the DNA down to its most minuscule particles, as Jennifer Jason Leigh's character states. That's fascinating. I mean, wow, what an interesting way of describing what an invasion might be like from this particular thing. And the thing is, we don't even know if it's really an invasion or if it's just like an accident and two completely different worlds colliding.
Or is it even that?
Yeah, that's the thing.
Well, what I think it is it's cancer. Like, literally, it's the Earth having cancer. And they're talking about cancer the entire time, but never actually saying. And them coming out, I think it's really Natalie Portman's character, but you're seeing that world, or that the shimmer engulf people, and so now, you blew up the cancer with your chemotherapy, but they're still alive, and now it's going to go spread and make more movies, provided it's successful. But that's kind of where I was. That just was sticking in my head a lot of the movie, and the only time I really started to doubt it was when the aliens, or if you want to call them aliens, the mirror appeared. That was kind of like, well, that kind of shoots my idea up, and then they blew it up, and I'm like, okay, maybe it didn't. So I really don't. That's kind of what I was thinking it was. But I mean, and obviously there's no right answer that on purpose.
In terms of just the filmmaking aspects that we haven't talked about yet, because I didn't want to spoil what happens with Oscar Isaac's character. That scene, even though I felt like I've seen this type of scene before, where it's revealed that he's talking to a version of himself and then blows himself up, is chilling. And the way Alex Garland filmed it, the sequencing of it is ingenious.
It was kind of like watching Natalie Portman go down on herself a lot. And that sounds funny, but I'm not kidding. When she pops up, in Black Swan, it's a lot like that. That's kind of how I felt watching that scene as well.
Yeah, it is genuinely chilling. It sent a shiver down my spine when I realized what was happening, and the immolation is stunning.
The immolation that makes everything else immolate as well. What does that tell us? That it's all connected, and it's like a mother brain of sorts in the original spot from whence it came from space. That almost minimizes the idea a little bit, but we don't know anything about it. So whatever happens, I suppose the film doesn't necessarily need to explain. It's just a very beautiful scene. All of the things that come from the shimmer are really fantastic looking. All of the little mollusk type things that are growing on the plants and the cement and the buildings and whatnot. That's a massive amount of set decoration right there that, I mean, I've never seen anything like it in a film before.
It reminded me of what the Lovely Bones might look like if they could make it today with this technology.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
But it still captures, like you were saying, Carpenter, and I'll say Sam Raimi, because I did kind of feel a combination of the two of those, the practical gore and whatnot, and even the set. It just felt more. It didn't feel fake, even though maybe part of it was, but it felt practical.
Yeah, there's elements of, like I was talking about body horror when we were talking about Aronofsky, and there's certainly a good deal of that here. We talked about the spinning intestines inside this guy's stomach. The scene is this is another incredible intense, terrifying scene where Oscar Isaac is cutting open a guy who is alive, sitting there talking to him, and he cuts open his stomach, and we see these intestines going. The result of that is seen later, and his body has bloomed into this thing that's like it's like coral reef going up a wall, and his head is at the top of it. Pieces of his torso are a part of it. Then his legs are down at the bottom. It's horrifying, and again, that reminded me of the creatures that in John Carpenter's The Thing.
And it reminded me of what cancer does to your organs.
That's a really interesting angle that I hadn't thought of, and I'll have to take that away from this recording and say, is that what the movie's saying? Is that what it's saying?
I think they have their idea too, but I don't think they're actually saying anything other than I really truly basically based on what they've said too.
Based on like what Alex Garland has talked about, I mean, he's talking about like nightmares and dream,
right.
Like a good dream and bad dream, essentially.
That particular scene you're talking about, the end result, the coral reef going up the wall of the particular soldier, reminds me a lot of. There's a deleted scene in the original Alien. It's part of the director's cut. And it's a scene where Dallas and Brett, two characters that have been taken, you don't see what happens to them per se. They've been transformed via alien saliva and whatnot into eggs. So they're going to be decomposed into eggs. And that scene was very reminiscent of that. It's Giger-esque in its way. And it reminded me then of Alien Covenant and how they tried to do body horror in a way that was supposed to be the new standard for body horror because it's an alien movie, and they failed at because that is far more terrifying than anything that I saw in Covenant, even though I still enjoyed that movie in certain aspects. This one gets that right. It does make your skin crawl, whereas that did not.
And with the Alien comparison, I mean, the creatures that Alex Garland creates in this movie are incredible. You've got, in this version, you've got... or this movie, you've got great-looking animals that aren't dangerous, like a deer that has like flowers growing out of its antlers. It's beautiful.
They still need to die. But yeah.
Then you've got this bear creature that is, it's like its head is sideways and like the skull is turned, but the body is still like a giant bear. But then it has the voices of the people that it kills, which is horrifying. Yeah, and what an evolutionary leap to use like trickery, like it's trying to trick you into thinking that this woman might still be alive, even though she's clearly dead. This thing has eaten her and is using her voice to draw her friends out of where they're hiding. Terrifying creature, and so imaginative.
And I think it goes back to the not understanding and knowing the world. You don't know why it got there. You don't know how, and you got to figure out what to do about it. And that theme ran throughout this entire movie, and it didn't really matter how it got there or why it was doing or whatever. It was all about the humans trying to figure out how to react to it and how to, cope with what's going on and adjust. And I don't know.
There's also something to be said about the gender roles in this movie as well. We're talking about this team of people who go into the Shimmer, all women. 5 women have gone in. Now, before them, it's been all men and military-trained guys who are going in there to essentially fight something and destroy something and getting destroyed themselves and not returning. And then the idea is to send, not necessarily, they don't specify that they're sending all women for any particular reason, but they do send all women on this one. And perhaps they're going to deal with it in a different way, but in the end, it's still about destruction. It's still about killing this thing.
Right, yeah, when I read reviews before, that kind of annoyed me the way it was written in all the reviews. In the movie, there's nothing annoying or eye-rolling about it. It just kind of, we're trying everything. Now we're going to try this one. That's kind of how it was presented. And none of us have anything to live for, so let's just see what happens. And never did I bring that. And I'm not talking about your review. I read a lot of reviews. So I don't even remember you even really specific. I can't remember that part in your review anyway. But when I brought that to the movie, it left quickly because they do a good job of not making it eye roll worthy.
And on top of it, it's not typical. Generally, in a science fiction film, or something like this, you've got a team that is got their own specific roles, and you've got to take time expositing what they're doing and where they came from and whatnot. And that was refreshing to hear. Well, we've done everything else. Now we're going to do this.
Yeah, they're just literally throwing shit.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Again,
and-
figuratively throwing shit.
And in terms of like, types of female characters, there's not really a. Even though Jennifer Jason Leigh is essentially older than these characters, she's never treated like the mom character. People are kind of afraid of her because she's distant and weird and quiet. And a lot of people complain about her performance too, being too quiet.
I just feel like a lot of the criticism came from people who wanted to see a different movie, and that's fine. It's a different movie than it's not your typical science fiction movie. And Arrival got a lot of the same, even though I agree it's way more traditional. It's still not that traditional, just compared to this it is. But I just think you wanted something else, or you need to rewatch it in the right frame of mind.
I think when we're trained so much by conventional narratives, 3-act structure, and the typical tropes of movies, we try and then we see something as unconventional as this. Our brain is kind of trained to try and put it into a box that we understand and try and break it down to something that makes sense to us. And sometimes, and I'm not trying to insult people in any way who might not like this movie. I'm not saying you're stupid. I'm saying that sometimes maybe your brain isn't in the right place where you want to spend time trying to break something down and put it into something that you can understand. And sometimes it's just, I don't really get it, and I'm not interested.
Well, what I think for, like, specifically Jason from New Mexico, I think he went in there and he's in the science fiction box, and he's pulling this weird shit into that box, and it doesn't fit. Mm-hmm. When we're in another box, we're pulling the random sci-fi stuff into that box, and it works. So it's just really the mentality and framework that it's not a smart or dumb thing. It's more of a where you're at going into
Yeah, we clearly don't know that we're right either, so it doesn't matter.
I'd say for me, a lot of it comes from the director and direction, and I'm very fascinated by the way directors work and the ideas and their inspiration and how they accomplish it, and that's where I come from in this movie. I went into it thinking about possibly that this is going to be a sci-fi movie, and I'm going to try and figure it out from a sci-fi direction, but after Alex Garland began to really prove again what a great director he is, that's where I came to it, and that's what I started thinking about as other directors that may have influenced what he does here.
The weird thing for me was Ex Machina has such a complicated idea, but it's such a simple story,
Mm-hmm.
and that was like I wanted it to be harder, and then you go to this, which is, I mean, like I was saying, it's like harder than Mother, and to the point where I think some of those are better accomplishments than this one. But I don't know. I'm impressed that he was able to do that and make it more complicated and make it work.
You know, a movie I want to see is sending Alicia Vikander's robot into the shimmer.
Ooh. Ooh.
I want to watch Oscar Isaac's character from Ex Machina in every movie. I mean, him and Rachel McAdams just making movies. Just those two. I don't care if it's a popcorn movie or what. I don't care if it's a Star Wars movie. It would be fun no matter what they do. Just those two characters.
What if they spent 3 movies together just walking with the...
Yes.
It's time to go.
Hell, Adam Sandler and Chris Rock. We done?